Bruce Rock.
Hey, good morning. Real quick, push button.
Probably the left or the right one.
Let me start by saying, how many of you guys are or were hunters? Any of you actually hunt in Alaska or ever have any, dreams about doing that? Well, I moved up to Alaska in 1981 out of Michigan, got out of Michigan State, went there on vacation for the first time, fell in love with it and never came back. I mean, built a life up there. So if you enjoy the outdoors, Alaska is an amazing place, but you got to have a winter sport other than heavy drinking if you want to. So anyways, I just want to cover, go over some of the basics in terms of planning, putting one of these hunts together. Everything from your gear list, deciding where, first thing you choose is what animal, species you want to hunt. And for non-residents, non-Alaskan residents, there are 3 of the main species that they require you to hire a guide on. Those are expensive. And that would be brown bear or grizzly, which is the same thing. Mountain goats or Dall sheep, and they're in dangerous terrain. But you can still go up there on your own and hunt moose, hunt caribou, hunt black bear, wolf, and wolverine without a guide. So once you've decided who you want to go with and what you'd like to hunt, then you got to figure out guided versus non-guided. And guided hunts are, for something like a caribou, you can probably get them for $6,000 to $7,000. For Dall sheep and brown bear, you're looking around $30,000. And those guys do almost everything for you except pull the trigger. So I've never really been interested in it, but a lot of people do. So you pick a species, and then you have to pick an area in the state that you'd like to hunt. And like the state of Arizona, Alaska has, a book of game regulations. So it's divided into 40 some odd subunits, each with its own bag limits and season dates. And the thing about Alaska that's still awesome is most of the species, you just have to buy your hunting license and big game tag. Down here, as I've learned, and one reason I haven't hunted in Arizona, is that you need to apply to hunt, deer or elk. You have to draw a permit. And unless you've lived here and applied for like 10 years in a row to accumulate enough points, I'm never going to get it. And so that's disappointing. In Alaska, that's not the case. There are areas that are drawing permit hunts only, but they're few and far between. Mostly it's just buy your license and buy a tag. So this is a big plane on wheels, way bigger than we initially chartered. With an air taxi, you can just rent the plane by the hour. When you go to a guide, he says, I can do a drop-off hunt for you. I'll put you in a couple good spots. You can be sure it's the biggest lake, the safest place in the world to land that he puts everybody in. So it's probably get a lot of hunting pressure and not going to be the best. So, but if you charter a plane, and then here's my wife. This is a float plane. That's a Cessna 185 on the floats. Good for 2 people, one of the more popular planes to have. And obviously it lands on the water anywhere. They probably need quarters of a mile of water to take off on. So it has to be a decent sized lake. But get yourself atlas of all these topographic maps that you study. You can pick lakes, even rivers that are wide enough to land that plane on. And you can tell, where the mountains are and where the forests are. So when you charter that plane, you typically have 3 or 4 spots that look good to you on a topographic map. And you tell the guy, I just want to fly over these places, and then I'll decide which one looks the best from here and you put me down. So in that case, you're picking the spot. The guy's still only going to land in a place that he deems safe, but probably will have less hunting pressure. That's called the Avalon Beaver on floats. And 4 guys in the gear, or 2 guys like my buddy and I, and lots of steaks and beer. What you typically do, we land there, we set up a base camp right there on the shoreline, and then
three other camps come in, or we're not seeing enough game after hunting it for a couple of days, then load up our backpacks, and hike 3 or 4 miles out at the middle of nowhere and hunt out there. But if you kill something out there, yeah, you've got to skin it out and pack it back. So this is a spring brown bear hunt. We didn't get dropped off in a helicopter. But this guy probably has the best job in the state of Alaska. See, it says troopers on there. That's the game warden. He's flying around in a helicopter on pontoons. So he landed on sandy beach, but he can land in the tundra. He can land on a lake. He can land anywhere with that thing. He hopped in, said hello, checked their licenses, and took off. So Alaska has such a limited road system. Basically, one road in, one road out. It's called the Alaska Highway. When you come into the Yukon Territory, it splits. You see one road, it's called the Castor Highway, it goes down closer to the coast. And the other one is the Alaska Highway that comes all the way down, dumps into the top of Montana. And my wife and I retired here 4 years ago. We drove from Anchorage all the way here. It was 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day. I mean, excuse me, 8 days, 12 hours a day. It's a long way. But if you take your time and you're prepared to camp, staying in no hotels along the way, it's a gorgeous drive. Into the state of Alaska, you can see barely the limited road system. Some guys hunt with boats, some guys have their own planes, some guys charter planes, and some guys are into the four-wheelers, side-by-sides, all those other type of off-road vehicles. Guys that follow off-road vehicles, I like to think I'm waving at them when you fly over the top of them, because they might, adventurous guys will go 40, 50 miles off the road down some 2-track or something. But those planes are flying 120 miles an hour, and it's usually 1 to 2 hours. So you're hundreds of miles past where those guys go. They're out there competing with people that have their own planes, and guides all over the world. Got the look here at the Alaska Atlas with the topical maps. Study, pick an area, those are the game management units I talked about. Rifles and helmets, gun club. What I have and I've used is pretty standardized. The big brown bear, big moose. It's a 375 H&H. That's what this round is right here. This is what I shot this 9-foot round bear with. There's the mushroom bullet that went in one side, and it's just pinned up against the skin. There's not enough power to get all the way out on the outside. So I might hit some things at all. And so the other gun is my all-around gun. It's a Remington Model 700, 300 Remington Ultra Mag. And typically, I'm shooting like this Barnes 180 grain TSX polymer tip boat tail shell that you can kill anything with, including the big brown bear or big moose. But I really want to be sure you're knocking them down in the first shot. 375 on those two. Caribou, bear. That's awesome. I spent it all day, mostly sitting on the side of the hill with binoculars and spotting scope. And when you're young and full of energy, you typically make the mistake, as I did for years, of walking around too much. I don't see anything, I'll start walking around. Hard to sit still for hours and hours. But then you just spread your human scent around the valley. And, like most wild animals are more active in early morning and right before dusk. So the best off just getting on a good vantage point, hanging out. For the tech breeze, ballistics on different bullets that we have here. And rule of thumb that I like to tell people if they don't want to get into the details is, if you sight in your hunting rifle on almost any hunting caliber, 30 caliber or better, 2 inches high at 100, you're almost consistently going to be dead on at 200 and about 5 inches low at 250. So beside of a big animal, with about a 12-inch circumference, you just sight it 2 inches high at 100, then you're good out to basically 300 yards, without having to do a holdover. Excuse me.
scopes, I've got some old ones that just are duplex. And so then, if I'm shooting 350 yards, I'm going to estimate while I'm looking at the animal, about 18 inches, I got to hold above the bullseye. But then I've got newer scopes that are lit on. We've got multiple crosshairs, so you can set up your ballistics so that you know if it's 300 yards, you're using the second crosshair, not the main crosshair, and all the way out to 500-600 yards, which I've never taken a shot over 350. I'd rather, be more of a hunter and stop them and get within 200 yards if I can. Stable calibers. This is cool cabin. We shot that first night going out to hunt sheep in the Alaska range, and that was a cabin built, maintained by the state of Alaska. It's on the Iditarod Sled Dog Trail. So it's open, it's really in good shape, first come, first served. You saw that first plane that we had dropped us off there, and then the next morning we were picked up by a couple of super cuts that only hold guys and gear, and they took us off to this valley, which is just outside the Denali National Park, so it's legal to hunt here. So this is a fine looking young fella that's walking right by and just figuring out that, what the hell, these people are sitting up there on the hill looking at me. The wind was in our favor, we weren't moving, we've been out all day, and now we're sitting up there with a rifle in one hand and a cocktail in the other, and the bear's walking by. So flying down, this is towards the Alaska Peninsula. This is a fall moose hunt, I believe. But this is the coastline. I mean, it looks like you're in Ireland or you're down, in Hawaii or something until you land and get out and feel the temperature. But further down, of course, you would see sandy beaches. Here's bears. They're just chasing the salmon. That's a September moose hunt we were on. That's a little contraption that we devised. If you're out in this tundra, there's not a tree to be found. In order to get out of the rain and some of the wind and set up the cooking area, it's just a tarp with telescoping poles and stakes. That's just being a tourist on a road trip up to the North Slope. That's the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, hauling all the oil from Prudhoe Bay down to Valdez. There's a Dall sheep that's having a lucky day. He's 2/3 of a curl. It has to be full curl on the horns to be legal to shoot. So he just got shot with a Canon 35 millimeter. So on this sheep hunt, we were dropped off down in that river valley where the river and the gravel bar is, and hunted down there for a couple of days, and then decided, oh, they had to be up on top of the mountain, so we had to climb the mountain with our backpacks, probably 3-4 hours to get up there. Spent a couple of days up there, did not see a full pro ram. That's in the Brooks Range. Hike-in sheep hunt. There's a corridor up there where for 5 miles on either side of the highway, it's walk-in only. You can't take any machines or can't land a plane. So they keep it for hiking, hunting only. Did it. Saw a bunch of sheep, but there's females and youngsters. The next lake trout. Unwelcome white stuff on the ground that fell the night before. The Talkeetna Mountains, all colors, even on just the bushes and the tundra, are spectacular, even without the trees. And again, working up some more white stuff. That's a small spike camp tent that we were in for a couple of nights on that hunt. And there is the guy whose skull is sitting right there, looks like King Kong. So that's the size of the pond. This thing's a bit bigger than my head. So she recalls. So fortunately, it was again one of those times we sat outside, hunting all day long, and then we're back in camp. We're just finishing up dinner, and out of the corner of my eye, I see something moving, and half a mile away on the hillside, here's this big boar. And one of the ways you tell it's a big boar is if he walks like he's not afraid of anything, and he owns, everything, just coming down slow. So guys, we got a big one. We put the glasses and spotting scope on him. Looked big enough. The wind was in our favor. He was coming our direction. So we put the forks and knives down and grabbed the guns, and about half a mile from camp, we crossed paths, and put him down with one bullet. Right over there. So he's chocolate colored on his belly and blonde on his back, which is kind of neat. And that's after you undress him and take him out of his pajamas and you hook him on your pack. Let about a third of it's dragging on the tundra, but that thing weighs 110 pounds. I mean, it's still half a mile walk back to camp is an easy one compared to most. But so as a trophy animal, the law requires you taking the hide and the skull as opposed to a game animal, which they require you taking, the antlers and all the meat. So this is a brown bear. The only people that eat brown bear that I know of are Alaska natives, and they don't like it much either. So you can see the float on the lower left of this float plane that's flying us out there. Look at that sandy beach, and that's part of the Alaska Peninsula. Huge brown bear country. So you get dropped off on that beach, set up your base camp, hike up that river valley 3 or 4 miles, and really be into the heart of some wilderness. It's just an amazing place. It's been a lot safer since they invented the satellite phones. Before that, when you pick the date to pick up, your partner dies of a heart attack 10 minutes after the plane leaves, you better put him in some cold water or something, keep the body as best you can for a week, and that happens. Went on a hiking hunt, I took my dog one time. Made him carry his own pack, his own kibble. So that's in the Wrangell St. Elias Mountains. It's huge. We saw one full furrow nice sheep, but of course he was across the river in a national park instead of in the national wilderness area. Pretty huge there. Before the iPhone existed, some of these pictures were taken with the old 35 millimeter. That's hanging in my den. It's a 68-inch bull moose. That was one of the hardest pack outs I ever did as well.
Weight did you carry out?
Well, those are about 80, 90 pounds for the antlers. And then, of course, you've got your reindeer and some food and some water. And, we even had a spike camp. It took us 3 to 4 days to go to 3 to 4 miles back to where the lake was, to haul the meat, to haul the antlers, and then come back and haul the tent and their gear as the last load.
So you're hauling meat too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's like 500 pounds of meat. That's 80, 90 pounds of antlers. So there's a joke in Alaska, the best way, moose hunts are a lot of fun, but the best way to ruin a moose hunt is to shoot a moose. And that's it, guys. That I've got to take a look at. Here's the game regulations. Anybody that's really interested in actually call the Department of Fish and Game, ask to speak to the caribou biologist, a sheep biologist for the particular area you're looking at. And those guys will talk to you and they'll tell you what the condition of the herd is and where, like the caribou are always migrating around. They'll say, oh, the bulk of the herd we just spotted last week over in this area.
What was your distance with that one picture of the bear seen right close up?
Oh, that was about, from here to the corner of the room, about 10 yards.
Oh,
He was right there. But, we both had 375 H&H ready. And he took a look at us, finally realized what we were. And then he took off at a gallop and ran about 100 yards, stopped, turned around, looked at us again, and then just walked off indignantly. Like, I'm not really scared of you.
It's the hide.
That is hanging on the wall in my room, bedroom.
Do you sight in a shooting range or how do you sight in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is
Go up
there
there.
any way to sight in now, new technology without having a fire?
Good question. I mean, a good gun shop could probably do that. They bore sight, when you buy a new rifle and a new scope, they'll assemble it for you and they will set it up so that you'll at least be hitting the paper at 100 yards typically. Now, whether they can really dial it in, I think that has to be done, on the range.
If the two of you are going, what's the average cost you're usually spending on a trip like this?
Oh, I mean, we spent between probably 1,200 and 4,000, depending on how long you're going to be flying in that chartered plane. I mean, The groceries were always maybe $250, Base camp, we'd have a cooler full of steaks and chicken and spaghetti and all kinds of good food. Then you have some freeze-dried food to go out to spike camp. But it's the cost of the air taxi that's the big expense. Anchorage is the only real big city in Alaska. And hunting on the Alaska Peninsula where I got that brown bear, you fly a commercial flight from Anchorage to King Salmon. And from there you charter, that beaver on wheels or on floats to get taken out to the wilderness. So if I was going to do it from here, it'd be the same principle. I go through the gear list in my garage for 2 weeks. I put everything together. I take it to Alaska Airlines Air Cargo. They put it on a pallet, shrink wrap it, probably $500 to fly from here to King Salmon through Anchorage. Then you get your airline ticket and you make a reservation with the air taxi guy on this day. And, I'm looking at going out and getting dropped in either this bay or that bay. I want to land on the sandy beach on wheels. The ocean is usually too rough, the North Pacific there, to land a float plane in the ocean. It was normally 6-8 foot swells. They don't put the plane down unless it's calm and that, and they got to land at low tide, at least in that area. But up in the Talkeetna Mountains where we shot a lot of caribou, you're landing on a beautiful alpine lake. It's about an hour's flight. And the plane rents for like $1,200 an hour or something. And so you have to pay for the hour for them to take you out. You pay for the hour for them to fly back. And then you pay another hour out, another hour back to get out. So you're paying for 4 hours if it's a 1 hour flight for that plane. So that's, $4,800 divided by 2, that's $2,400 a person for just 2 of you. If you get a beaver and it goes for a couple hundred more an hour, just get out the calculator. If you got 3 guys to divide it by, it's going to turn out to be a little more efficient.
How many days of the trip would that be?
As many as you want to stay out there. We typically would go out on Friday or Saturday and come back on the following Saturday. So 7 or 8 days we'd be out there. By then you're really ready for a shower and, you missed a couple football games.
Do you have any trips planned?
No, unfortunately, I'm still hopefully going to get up there a couple more times, before the legs can't even, do half of what they used to. But my buddies have seemed to, lost interest in going to Alaska. I don't know why, but nothing like it when you're out there. But of course, when it's raining nonstop for 3 days and you're stuck in a tent and you don't have a book to read anymore, it gets pretty, boring.
No all-inclusive resorts up there?
Yeah,
No Club Med.
there are. I mean, the fishing lodges that are up there too in the summertime. I mean, if you guys are avid fishermen, and they are expensive. What, 1,800 a day per person. But you get flown out to any stream that's producing the best for trout or salmon runs. You're eating first class, cuisine and shore lunches that are packed by these guys. And I don't mind going on a guided fishing hunt. I just think guided hunting trips are like, the guys think they did everything and all they did was pull the trigger and the guy takes their picture, he skins it out, he packs it back, he fixes their meals. They don't have to do anything. I don't have much respect for that, but
These fishing lodges, you just mentioned, they each day they fly you out to
Yep.
fish.
well, check out like Bear Trail Lodge. It's in King Salmon. It's right on the Naknek River. And they have guides that run people up and down that river, which has tremendous salmon runs in it and trout fishing. So you can, usually a combination of fishing the river that the lodge is on. And then they've got multiple planes on floats where they send a pilot to fly the plane, a guide to take the 3 or 4 people, and you walk for miles in your waders up or down a river fishing, the whole way. It's all catch and release for trout. Salmon is catch and kill. If you want to eat, kill the salmon.
What's the name of the place?
Bear Trail Lodge.
In King Salmon.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. They do a phenomenal job. Got great photographs on their website. So
Good
Yeah.
food,
oh,
nice lodging, everything.
yeah, first class. And there are many of them. Yes.
In addition to your rifles that you bring, do you take any pistols or anything for protection?
No, I mean, that's just extra weight in my opinion. I mean, most 99% of the time, you're not going to have but a bear that's going to get that aggressive. But, I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But we were charged one time by bear. We got dropped off and we're just unloading the gear. The plane takes off. So, all right, guys, let's grab our water bottles, go down the creek and get water first before we start putting base camp together. And we're walking down, and must have been 150 yards out of the marsh. Here's a brown bear. And there's 3 of us. I got 2 buddies with me at the time. And so the bear just lifts up on his legs. He looks at us. He drops down and hits a full gallop coming right at us. I said, holy shit, guys, this is most likely a false charge. This looks like a teenager because they're the ones that are unpredictable. They don't get to be 10 feet big and bad if they're stupid because they get shot by the natives or anybody. So the bear for sure, he comes up, throws brakes on at about from here to that TV, and basically I was saying if you got another 5 feet closer, 3 rifles, we're going to open up on him. But then he turned sideways. He started beating up an alder bush. He looked back like, you guys impressed yet? Beat it up again, and he just walked off. And one guy was the first time he'd ever been to Alaska, so he was having to clean his pants to find And another time, we had a badass teenager that was harassing us. Get up in the morning, climb out of your tent, and he's from here to the corner, just standing there watching. And then the next night, he's walking around the tent outside in pitch black, and he growled. And he's not more than 10 yards from the tent. So I'm saying, "God, there's out there. Bruce, why are we whispering? He knows right where the fuck we are." I said, yeah, you're right. So we started yelling, and we stuck a 44 Magnum pistol, which we did. My buddy had brought out the tent door and just fired it up in the air, and that took care of it until the next day.
You're shooting at like 300 watts, you said?
Pardon me?
You're shooting at 300 watts? 300 watts is what you're looking at?
At the most, right there. I mean, that bear was 10 yards outside.
Okay, no, you're gonna go hunting.
Oh, when I go hunting, yeah, I try to not shoot over 300 yards if I can. But I've got a scope now that has multiple crosshairs that, if I want to take a 500-yard shot, I'd rather go practice up at the range here first, which I haven't done.
You
That's
got
the,
an application on scope.
yeah.
There's
Um,
an application on scope.
On that one, it's 3 to 9. I don't have the big 12 or 15 power scope on there. But it's exciting adventure out there.
What's the average weight of your kit going in per person that you bring on your back?
Well, the backpack normally is 40 to 50 pounds. I mean, those planes typically have, pilots always want you to get rid of everything. They're sandbagging. But the planes do have limits, both legally and performance-wise, on what they can carry. For 2 guys, like in a 185 or 206, including your body weight, you're not supposed to be over 800 pounds. So most guys are a couple hundred pounds, close to it. So half of the weight you're allowed to take is your body weight and your rifle. So the gear is another 400 pounds.
So what if you bag something else?
And then you're paying for more, not an extra trip on the
Oh,
plane.
yes, true.
Yeah. So that's another, that's an expensive trigger pull, $3,000 or $4,000 trigger pull. How do you do that? My wife won't let me put it in the den. I put it in the garage. I just spent $6,000 on that thing. It's the experience. Then you run into tremendous fishing in some places. There's also a pretty good population of wolverines and wolves out there. Never got a wolf, but I've got 2 wolverines, which are pretty rare animal. But some of the areas I went to, there were plenty of them. They would be on the carcass. If anything would be shot within a couple of days, you just sit there and hunt the carcass. Now you got a bait pile, right? Bears get on it too. We had 1 bear carcass that must have had 20 red fox on it. I was on Kodiak Island. And within another couple of days, there were close to 30 bald and golden eagles. I mean, this thing was cleaned up like the African savannah in a week. So nothing goes to waste out there.
Is there anything you wanted to get that you never did?
Just a wolf, a big wolf. I mean, they're 150 pounds. They can run like a greyhound. They're incredible. I mean, they're as big as a black bear. You get 18 or 20 of them, they can take down any animal that gets in their way.
Have you, gone hunting in other locations? Big game hunting?
Just in, well, I don't, white-tailed deer is hard to call big game, but I guess they are. In Michigan, I did a lot of that. But Kodiak, that island, they have a lot of such a black-tailed deer. And there's no wolves or wolverine, but there's a ton of fox on Kodiak and hungry brown bears. So you shoot a deer there, your buddy basically stands guard over you while you're gutting this thing out and leaving the gut pile, and then you drag the whole carcass down to the beach, go back to hunting day, next day, the whole gut pile's gone. The fox and the bears eat it up.
What's your biggest danger when you're out there? Is it bears around your tents at night, or is it the weather?
It'd be hypothermia and, ignorance of not being able to tell when the weather's turning to the worst, and you better head back to camp and, hang out in your tent a couple of days. Always have a backup tent. I mean, a bear or a bad windstorm could shred your tent. Then you're really in deep cockeyed. So you have a gear tent that's backup, and you have a spike camp tent that you use for spike camp. It's also a backup tent. So we go out there with 3 tents and that tarp and ropes and stakes. So we could take a couple of punches and still have some shelter.
What do you do with your food? I mean, do you keep it, you don't keep it in coolers on the ground?
Now we do, we bring an action packer with the dry goods and, a medium-sized cooler with steaks and chicken and hamburger and eggs and bacon and pancake mix, we eat pretty well out there because you're burning a lot of
You've never
calories.
had any problems with that?
No, when you're out there armed in an area where bears and wolves are hunted by humans, they're nowhere near typically as dangerous as bears in Yellowstone Park that aren't afraid of people. I mean, clean camp. I mean, we cook bacon. If we walk 10 feet away from the camp and dump the grease over here, that's a clean camp. As opposed to all the precautions they tell you about sticking up a tree. There's no tree to hang your food in.
You have any watch, you have cell phone coverage and internet?
No, I don't think so. There's nothing out there. Yeah. We bring a satellite home these days, or we did, just for emergencies, and you got to call in and see how your favorite sport team did on Saturday.
Cell phone.
All right, any other questions for Bruce? Well, let's thank Bruce for. And so feel free to take a look at the items on the table. Any other questions? Again, next outing will be November, will be the base. And then we've got someone from the Arizona Cowboy and Cowgirl Single Shot Association who's going to come in next month or in December. So thanks everybody for coming. Thank you very much.
God, Larry, he's my IT guy.